Previously, we have looked at 4 battles between the Miyagi Fang Kids and the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Currently, the Rangers have 3 points, with Jason, Billy, and Zach all beating Miguel, Hawk, and Dimitri. But now, let's see who wins between Queen Cobra, Tory Nichols, and the Yellow Ranger, Trini Kwan. Again, let's begin by looking at their histories. Tory Nichols was born in 2001. She would eventually move to the Valley and join Cobra Kai after they won the 2018 All-Valley Tournament. Very quickly, she would become enemies with Samantha LaRusso, and the two's rivalry would continue so much that Tory would eventually end up on probation. Not many people are aware of this in the show, but Tory has a younger brother and a mother that she has to take care of. Her father is nowhere to be seen in the picture. During Season 2, Tory would date Miguel Diaz for a long while, until they broke up by the end of Season 2. Tory would then begin to date Robbie Keane, once he would join Cobra Kai and become the best fighter there. She would then defeat Samantha LaRusso, becoming the 2019 All-Valley champ and winning for Cobra Kai. Tory is one of the only Cobra Kai students who has not switched dojos. It's not until the final season where she finally sees the light and becomes a Miyagi Fang fighter. Tory would help lead the final fight against Cobra Kai in the flagship dojo fight, letting the Miyagi Fangs in and helping them with their plan. She would then slowly even become friends with Samantha LaRusso and the other Miyagi Fangs. She also became a mentor figure to Devin Lee, a fellow Cobra Kai student. Although Tory may not have had the best track record in the past, she's a solid fighter and she won't hold anything back. Trini Kwan was born on August 9th in Houston, Texas. She would eventually move to Angel Grove, where she would begin to have a crush on Jason Lee Scott. Eventually, she and 4 other teenagers would be chosen to fight against Rita Repulsa. She was chosen for her agility and fearlessness to use the yellow saber-toothed tiger coin. After Lord Zed began taking charge, she would then take command of the Griffin Thunderzord once her saber-toothed tiger wasn't strong enough. Trini would also be involved in the Shattered Grid event, where she and many other Rangers would have to battle Lord Draken, an evil version of Tommy Oliver. Eventually, she discovered that after Draken's defeat, their memories were wiped of the event, until Jason needed her and Zach's help. She, Zach, and Jason would then become the Omega Rangers, as she would now take on the powers of Omega Yellow with the power of Earth. During their missions as the Omega Rangers, Jason would be possessed by the Death Ranger, and to save him, Andros would have to sever his connection to the Omega Red powers. Jason couldn't use his powers anymore, but he knew that he could trust one person to become the new Red Omega Ranger, and that was Trini. Jason would have a relationship with Trini for a long while. In the show, she would also date a guy named Richie, but that was only for a few episodes. She also had a small relationship with Zach Taylor. In the future, Trini would have a child named Min Kwan, although it is unknown who the father is. Through many trials, Trini would rise up, conquering her fears and taking her place among the legendary Yellow Rangers. So with all the history out of the way, let's begin round 4. But first, we're going to need the ground rules again. We're analyzing the characters in 5 points of criteria: strength, speed, tricks, IQ, and experience. Whomever has the edge over the other character will gain a point in that factor, and in the end, the fighter with the most points wins the fight. The Rangers cannot use weapons or powers, and no Zords are allowed either. We will be analyzing the characters as a whole, so we will be pulling from all mainstream appearances of both the Miyagi Fangs and the Rangers. We will not be counting injuries. Things like Miguel's back injury will be only used as a factor of analyzation, not a hindrance to his abilities. I will do my best to analyze the Power Ranger fights when they're only unmorphed, and I will also try my best not to be biased to any one side. So with the rules set and fighters ready, let's begin round 4.
It's morphin' time! Saber-tooth tiger! No mercy!
To start things off, let's begin with strength. Trini was known to be the person that trained with Jason the most. She was seen climbing and weight training often like Jason and the others. Trini's main way of fighting was in the Mantis style of Kung Fu. She was also shown to practice gymnastics with Kimberly. Trini was also known to play quite a few sports. We know that Trini is one of the most flexible Rangers. Trini also had to face the Mantis monster unmorphed for a short time, then she eventually had to morph, so she has the strength to take on monsters. Trini has been shown to fight against the Putty Patrollers, which we've established are made of a rock clay-like substance that absorbs any blow, so they have to be hitting pretty hard. She constantly fights the putties, increasing her strength, and she would take on many Putty Patrollers on her own. Later on, she would have to take on the Super Putty Patrollers, and even later the Z Putty Patrollers, which were even stronger than the previous ones. In the Darkest Hour storyline, Trini had to face down Thralls, putty-like villains that were infused with Dark Spectre's powers. Although we said we won't be counting the Rangers morphed, but it is seen that Trini was the first Ranger to defeat one of the monsters on her own, so we will account that for something. Trini would often train with Jason. She would also teach Tai Chi, and is able to keep herself calm in a fight. Trini was known to take on enemies unmorphed on her own. In the pilot episode, Trini is seen to be the second to last ranger defeated by the putty patrollers. She's only outlasted by Jason. Trini has also been shown to launch multiple putties flying through the air. Trini was known to be mentally strong as well, being able to conquer her fear of heights on more than one occasion. Trini also has a track record of training for quite a few years, so she's been building up strength for a long time. Tory Nichols was seen mostly in the Cobra Kai dojo, which is primarily strength training. She was shown to already have training and strength, being able to take down Miguel in the first episode. It's assumed that she has had training before. Once she was in Cobra Kai, she was often seen training with the weights. Tory has been shown to take on some of the toughest fighters. She would fight against multiple Miyagi-Do fighters on her own. Tory was seen training with a stone-made dummy in Season 5, and was able to break through it, but it severely hurt her hand in the process. Later on in the same season, she would lead the fight against Cobra Kai, and in that same fight, she wouldn't have to just fight students, she had to fight one of the senseis. Although she did gain help from Sam and Devin, she was able to take down Kim Dae-un. When Robbie Keane joined Cobra Kai, he challenged them all to a fight. Now Robbie had been training longer than Tory, but she was the only fighter to get a hit on Robbie. We also know that Tory is a bit mentally strong since she's able to hold her own even when her hand is broken. Whenever Tory fought, she would fight with aggression. Her aggression would increase her strength factor, as we see it pushes her to her limits. Much like in the school fight, Tory would continue to use her anger as power. Like we've said before, Cobra Kai focused on striking first, not defense. They would focus on their physical strength, turning her aggression into her own power, which could also blind her. This is shown in Season 5 when she has to teach Devin and pushes her to her limits. As even as these characters' strengths may be at this time, we're giving the strength factor to Tory. As strong as Trini is, she's more focused on her speed and mental strength, but Tory is physically a lot stronger. So for the strength point, it's going to go to Tory. Now when it comes to strength, Tory may have the point, but speed again is a different story. Tory is shown to be a fairly quick fighter, but she's nowhere near as fast as Hawk or Miguel. But she is one of the quicker fighters. We see this in the 2019 All Valley. She's able to beat Devin Lee in under a minute. Tory is shown to quickly swap between her opponents mid-fight, so she has no problem adapting. In the house fight, she's shown to be one of the most proficient fighters, taking on the most Miyagi fangs. We see that in a 1v1 with Sam, Tory is able to keep Sam on her toes. In the flagship dojo fight, Tory is able to quickly react and fight even though there are a ton of fighters running around. She's quick to notice many attacks from behind. During Stingray's party, she's able to fight with Robbie, catching both Sam and Miguel off guard without even thinking. During the skills competition of the All Valley, we see that Tory flows quickly with a sword. Although Tory is only shown a bit during Coyote Creek, she does fight quickly in a tag team match with Miguel. We do know that she and Devin were potentially able to beat Kim Dae-un, although they weren't. She's quick to protect Devin and keeps going. When Kim Dae-un puts the two against each other, Tory is quick enough to keep Devin away from the fighting stick. While the judges observe the students for the Sekai Taikai, Tory is shown fighting alongside Devin, training together, and their speed is matching each other. Trini is known for using the powers of the saber-toothed tiger. While she didn't focus on her own strength, she utilized her speed and mind the most. Trini was often shown using her speed to jump over her enemies or to dodge an attack from behind. She used her speed to deflect attacks and counter as much as she could. In the comics, we see a younger version of Trini who would race against planes just for fun. Her friend, Kevin, in the issue says that the plane had to have been a C-17, and that she would have outrun it, which the C-17 can go around 590 miles per hour, which is humanly impossible, but it was just taking off. In the episode Rita's Seed of Evil, Trini is shown to use her speed not only to combat putties, but also to allow putties to take each other out. Her quick strikes would wear down her opponent, and then she'd go in for a bigger strike. In the episode Return of an Old Friend, Trini is shown to use her speed to catch many putties as she can, and taking the speed to throw them into the walls, destroying them. Trini's reaction time is one of her strongest abilities. In the episode Reign of the Jellyfish, Trini uses her speed to almost react instantly in the fight. She's able to take on all the putties on her own, and when it comes to the fight, Trini is possibly the fastest ranger out of the original 6. We see her speed again in the episode The White Light, where she has to fight about 4 Z putties on her own. So when we analyze speed, there's no competition. Trini has a lot more speed than her opponent does. So far it's an even score, but let's see how tricks change things up. When we look at tricks, we of course know that Tory was trained in the way of the fist. She's able to fight against some of the toughest competitors, and although Tory only trained in Cobra Kai, she's still a pretty crafty fighter. She uses her anger to push further like we previously mentioned. When Robbie was joining Cobra Kai, he taught her and the other Cobra Kais how to use Miyagi-Do. She has also said that she had kickboxing training, which could help in a fight. Tory is able to use her surroundings to swing herself around, like when she and Robbie went against Sam and Miguel at the prom fight. Tory was also partially trained by Sensei Joe, or Chosen Taguchi, where he taught her to have balance in her mind, and that honor is everything. We see that weapons-wise, Tory is able to use nunchucks and a katana. But like we said, weapons aren't going to be helping here because we're not going to allow them. Tory is fairly athletic, being shown to do a kip-up and more. Trini, like we've established, is a very smart fighter. Her fighting style is much more similar to Miyagi-Do. She's able to beat her enemies by reflecting their own attacks. Trini is really athletic, being able to flip up and over her enemies. Contrary to Tory's way of fighting, Trini uses her mind to outsmart the enemy. Trini's ability to do gymnastics will allow her to move much quicker than Tory can react. We see that Trini, like we said before, practices Tai Chi, which allows her to focus and keep her mind steady during the fight. This ability contrasts to Tory's lack of balance. Trini also happens to use the air much like her fellow Rangers. She's been shown to excel even if she needs to be up high. Even though she may be afraid of heights, she's still able to put that aside in the fight. Trini also knows that she can fight low to the ground. In multiple episodes, Trini is shown to use the low ground to her advantage. She's often seen using the splits to strike her enemy without them expecting it. These two don't have as many secret tactics as the other characters do. But when it comes to tricks, it looks like this point is gonna go to Trini. This next point comes down to IQ. Let's see who gets this one. Tory is a pretty smart student. She's clever enough to come up with a plan to take down Cobra Kai, and also take down Miyagi-Do. She's also shown to be able to make an ambush on the LaRusso household during the house fight. Tory uses her smarts again during the prom dance, where she and Robbie go to mess with Sam and Miguel's heads, so that during the tournament, they'll be thrown off. She does this again in the house fight, chasing Sam to fill her with fear, and it works. She's also used lockers, railings, and more during the school fight. She knows how to use her surroundings very well. When it comes to creative fighting, Tory is pretty crafty. She's able to use weapons when she finds them to her advantage. She's also been known to use things like her spiked bracelet to fight against Sam. During the arcade fight, she again is able to ambush the Miyagi Fangs, taking them by surprise and taking the victory. When it comes to book smarts, Trini is the second smartest of the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. The only Ranger who was smarter was Billy Cranston. She was the only one able to translate Billy's tech talk, and was often seen helping Billy create the tech they needed. But she was also smart when it came to fighting. She always believed in a fair fight and was against violence. This was reflected again in her fighting style. Trini always used her enemies against themselves, and would always fight with her mind first. We see her constantly anticipating the next attack and where it would come from. Trini would always keep the fight on her own terms. Never escalate a fight unless your enemy forces you to was one of the Ranger rules, and this was one of the rules she took to heart. Whenever she's in a fight, she's able to create the terms for herself, and is always able to figure a way out. So wrapping up IQ, we're giving the smarts point to Trini. But we're also giving points to Tory for creative fighting. As we wrap it all up, this may be the closest match we've had. Experience is going to be our final fact. Which Ranger, or Miyagi Fang fighter, will come out on top? Let's start with Trini. When Trini was young, she stated that she had trained in Kung Fu for a short time, but not as often as, say, Jason or even Tommy. Her fighting style in Kung Fu was the Mantis, which she used her speed to strike quickly. She would be trained by Master Lee in the Mantis style of Kung Fu. Trini is the same age as Jason, so we can assume she's been training almost as long as Jason has, but not as consistently. Unlike karate, Kung Fu does not use belts. Instead, they use sashes. Although it's possible she has a black sash because it could just be hidden with her uniform, we don't see a sash anywhere throughout the series, so that's all really assumption. She would be trained by Jason Lee Scott, where she was often seen training in many different martial arts alongside him. She would also train with Jason again very constantly, doing kata alongside him. She also had an uncle named Uncle Howard, who was a martial artist who also trained her when she was younger. Now Legacy Wars may actually give us a hint to what grade belt or sash Trini is considered. This took a long time for me to figure out, but I looked at the Legacy Wars model of Trini, and in the model we see Trini is wearing a black belt. but it's not a normal belt like the other characters. It looks like a black martial arts belt. So it's safe to assume that, yeah, Trini is a black belt as well, much like her other fellow Rangers, or at least a black sash. She, alongside the other Rangers, were also trained by Master Splinter. Legacy Wars describes her as a devoted spiritual martial artist. She's observant, intelligent, and above all, patient, with razor-sharp fighting skills and lightning-fast reflexes. So this means Trini has about 2 to 4 years of experience. Now Tory confirms that she had a short time of kickboxing training before she fought for Cobra Kai, so she has some martial arts training in the past. She would then join Cobra Kai under Johnny Lawrence and would continue to train for about 1 year. Alongside Johnny, she would train under John Kreese. At this point, she's about 17 to 18 years old, being one of the oldest groups as of Season 4. When Johnny is kicked out of Cobra Kai, she would not only be fully trained by John Kreese, but she would also be trained by Terry Silver. When the dojo expanded, she would be trained by many other senseis, and Chosen Taguchi. But her new primary teacher would be Kim Dae-un, who would help train the next generation of kids. She's had a lot of senseis, but hasn't trained nearly as long as Trini has. So with this final point is going to be given to Trini, earning a 4th point for the Mighty Morphin team. Although Tory does have quite a bit of experience, from the evidence we seemingly can tell Trini does have a bit more. Maybe not as consistently as Jason or Tommy like we previously mentioned, but she is presumably the 4th best fighter. So with that, MMPR wins another point. There are 2 fights left. Let's see how those final 2 fights turn out next time.
Hey, nice stereo!
Get hold of everyone else. Let them know that we're taking down Cobra Kai. Tonight.